Welcome to the Geekcentric podcast, and welcome to our spoiler-free review for Next Goal Wins. All we want is one goal. One goal. One goal. Hello, this is the Geekcentric podcast. My name is Kev, and today we are talking about a bunch of losers in the newest movie from Taika Waititi, loser of the Best Picture Academy Award for Jojo Rabbit, and loser of the Teen Choice Award for Thor Ragnarok. But first, if you're joining us for the first time, well, we are Geekcentric, a podcast focusing on the world of movies, TV shows, games, toys, and collectibles, and all things geek-centric. Now, winning a football match requires teamwork, and so too does running a successful podcast. So just like when I'm asked if I'd like to order whiskey, beer, or wine at a bar, and I order all three, I'll do the same today, and I'll order a Darcy, a Nate, and a Justin to help me on the show. How are we doing today, gentlemen?
The chickens have come home to roast, Kevin. That's how we're doing.
Beautiful.
Did a tin can lady tell you that one? Because it sounds kind of hokey.
I don't know if I learned anything from the movie. Take advice from the crazy tin can lady on the beach. She knows what she's talking about.
That's
Absolutely.
true.
Yeah. But now let's hit the pitch and talk about this beautiful movie about the beautiful game. Directed by award winner Taika Waititi. I know in my intro I said otherwise, but he did actually win an award for Jojo Rabbit. And inspired by a true story that pretty much actually happened, Next Goal Wins follows the American Samoa soccer team, infamous for their brutal 31-0 loss to Australia in 2001. With the World Cup qualifiers approaching, the team hires down on his luck Maverick coach Thomas Rongen, hoping he will turn the world's worst soccer team around in this heartfelt underdog comedy. The movie stars Michael Fassbender, Oscar Keightley, Kaimena, David Fain, Rachel House, Beulah Kuali, Yuli Latukfu, Simu Philippou, and Lehigh Falapapalongi, with Will Arnett and Elizabeth Moss. The movie hits theaters November 17th, but we'd like to thank our friends at Searchlight Pictures for letting us scout this one early so we can let you know what to expect before the big match. And I think, as always, we're going to start with what worked for this delightful movie. Nate, why don't you get us going?
Yeah, I think, this movie, this was a lot of fun, a lot of smiles, a lot of laughs. I had a good time with it. I think for better and for worse, it reminds me a lot of sort of the cliche sports movies that you've seen before, right? Your Cool Runnings, your Mighty Ducks. But I think what sets this one apart for me has to be the American Samoan charm that's just brought in by the incredible cast. And I think you pair them with the Taika Waititi humor, which I think is not for everyone. And I think there's a lot of people that are maybe a little bit kind of over with this guy, with this Taika Waititi constantly showing up. Personally, I'm still okay with him. I still really dig his humor. I'm still really having a lot of fun. Maybe I go see one more movie after this that Taika's done, and maybe then I'll be Taika'd out. But no, I think there's a lot of fun and laughs to be had, and it's really heartfelt. And it's a feel good movie that by the end of the movie I felt good. I have problems with it, but we'll get to it.
A feel-good movie that made you feel good. I love that it actually
crazy.
achieved that. No, I think a lot of the sentiments that you're saying in regards to, it being very Taika Waititi, that's what I appreciated. This guy is an auteur filmmaker that has his own distinct style of how he likes to tell his stories through comedy, through dramatization, and poking fun at that throughout his movies, and even the nod to we're witnessing a story from the mind of Taika Waititi. It always seems like he's the one to kind of kick off these films and these stories as sort of a sentiment that they are from his mind. They are his interpretation of these stories. And I think that worked really well. The whole Taika Waititi vibe. This is a Taika Waititi movie. And it had the charm, the heart. It featured a fantastic cast, as you mentioned, which we'll probably get into in more in depthly. But most of all, it's an underdog story, and one that is as Kevin said, it's true to a degree, and obviously maybe I think some of the qualms or issues that people might have with it is the liberties that might have been taken with certain characters and certain things that kind of evolve through this movie. But at the end of the day, I think it sticks to the message that it wants to send.
Well, and I think, while this movie might be as cliche and generic as a feel-good sports movie comes, what really carries all of those movies and makes the good ones stand out from the bad or the forgettable is the cast, is a group of characters that you just can't help but get behind and root for. And this movie, I think the strongest aspect of the movie is its cast. In particular, I think Oscar Keightley as Tavita, the leader of the American Samoan Football Federation, is just so amazing. His outlook and his attitude about life is so endearing, and just it makes you really question, how you acted maybe that morning when they didn't get your coffee right at Tim Hortons. And it's like, is life really worth wasting time getting upset about the really little things when there's so much more important stuff to think about and worry about? And so the culture of the American Samoans in this movie really shines through, and their bright, beautiful outlook on life really shines through. And I think that's probably the driving force that I'll remember most about this movie.
100%. Like you said, the cast is what was the standout part of the movie for me. And a lot of that comes from the way that they were interacting with each other. It felt so genuine, like you were a part of this soccer team that was a family's life. And it was so endearing. And again, Oscar Keightley was a standout just because he had some of the best laugh out loud moments with his recurring jokes, or the way he'd pop up in another job, because everyone has multiple jobs there. It's a small island. You got to get stuff done. So it's just the humor and the cast was, again, memorable for me, but that usually comes from all Taika Waititi movies. He knows how to cast and how to tell a story through his humor and comedy. So it was great.
Yeah, I think it's those messages and that cultural representation of these people that, as you said, Darcy, like they have to have two jobs or their community doesn't work. And it's just, but at the same time, they're not upset about it. This is just the way that life is, and it's beautiful. And I think it really helps to go a long way and help you fall in love instantly with these people who just show such a strong contrast to Coach Rongen, who's coming in and is very much kind of almost the anti version of a lot of these characters, and it obviously it's a cliche thing, and you'll see how that transforms his character throughout the movie. But yeah, the American Samoan charm that pulsates throughout the film, I think really, really helps it. And a big part of that also has to do with like some of the music, right? Like in terms of like Giacchino, I was a bit surprised to see his name pop up on the credits, but I went back and I YouTubed a few tracks, and yeah, it's great. It works really well for the dramatic stuff. I think the American Samoan songs played throughout on the soundtrack side really, really worked for me. And then I think it was even better when the teams would do the haka, and you would see sort of a really great aspect of them improving that throughout the film, just like they improve in football a little bit. But it's great to sort of see how they're able to grow stronger within their own traditions. I thought was really lovely.
Yeah, I think the story is completely anchored by Oscar Keightley and Fassbender's roles. They're sort of opposite ends of an emotional spectrum. Fassbender's character is obviously dealing with a lot, and there's such an open optimism to Vita and how he looks at life and how he looks at the community of the American Samoan. And that sort of, like you guys are saying, like that being the influence to sort of change Coach Rongen's perspective on life, I think is touching, and it's just handled with the right amount of emotion and comedy. Like it's incredible how Taika's movies have like that sort of intersection of being able to weave those together.
Yeah, I mean, I can't agree more in terms of the music and the fun blend of the score from Giacchino, the Samoan American sort of very culturally specific songs, and then the fun North American tracks that they throw in there, because that North American culture is so important to people on the island, and their adoration for people like Elvis, and then specifically in the music with Dolly Parton playing. Yes. Was a lot of fun there.
Yeah.
But no, again, I think we keep going back to it in the cast and the way it carries the film. I would say the worst casting is the fake beard that they put on Michael Fassbender at the beginning of the movie, which fortunately did not last very long. We moved on from that quickly enough, so that was great. And then I just think one of the more important characters in the movie, Jaya, played by Kamina, It's so amazing. The strength that this character shows, the love that they have, and the support that they have from their teammates and just everyone on the island and the culture specifically. It's such an important message to this day, with everything going on in the world, just with LGBTQ and trans rights, that I think that's one of the more important messages that the film has is loving people for who they are and what they bring. Under all circumstances. And so I think the movie has a lot to say in that regard. Whether it's handled or addressed enough in the movie is another question.
Yeah, I think honestly the MVP in this cast is Kaimina, who plays Jaya, and their first major role. I think they absolutely nailed the performance and really gave so much in terms of like pushing for their performance and so much heart. And I think the even outside of the true story of the American Samoan soccer team or their coach, I really do think Jaya's story is such an important one to bring to light for wider audiences. I again, to your point, Kevin, I think there's some aspects that, in terms of how they used that aspect of the story, that didn't fully work for me, and I think there's certain aspects of Coach Rongen's story that because like in tandem with it feel really rushed, and I think I don't know I just it takes moments that I really really love and just puts a bit of a damper on it when you just realize sort of how they sort of utilized those sections of the story. But no, I think as far as Kaimina is concerned, like, I really can't wait to see, what they might do next in the industry.
It's funny because it's almost both a strength and a weakness of the movie, that Taika keeps this movie so deliberately paced, and it makes for a breezy movie, such an easy watch, but at the same time does force the movie to rush over some aspects that I would have been more than happy spending a few more minutes with, just to sort of develop and flesh those moments out a bit.
Yeah, I wonder too, though, if that doesn't also change the trajectory of this movie. I think that the culture and the people are what inspire Coach Rongen's character to see new light. And Jaya is a part of that. She's a part of that culture. The way they look at her and celebrate her, and it's not like this crazy, oh, well, who are they, right? To him, it's an issue, and he has to negotiate that. But it's the culture around him that allows him to see how accepting that is. I think that's the part that's the celebration. I know people would want to see more of a focus, because that is a story on its own that could be told in a whole other manner. But here specifically, the character of Jaya is part of a representation of the culture and is part of Coach Rongen's journey. I still think there was something there. It just wasn't necessarily as much of a focus as I think people thought. For me personally, I didn't see any sort of sense of disrespect. Right?
No.
The disrespect would have been not to have them in it at all and have them to be very just minor. But there's still an importance to that character. And I think their story is so important to see on a larger scale, separate from this. But here, it's definitely an element within the larger narrative for Coach Rongen's journey.
Well, I mean, I do want to keep going on that, just in terms of what still worked for me, though. I do want to shout out, I love seeing some Taika staples from Our Flag Means Death, both Rhys Darby, of course, and David Fane. And Rhys, who unfortunately we don't get as much as I would have wanted of that character, but he is exactly what you would expect from him. Think Murray from Flight of the Conchords, but with more corporate power, which is such a fun idea. That
Perfect.
I would, right? I'd watch a whole show just about Murray trying to do that job. But then, or sorry, Rhys Darby doing that job, or Murray. But then David Fane is just as sweet and lovely as ever, and I really love his character, helping Coach Tongan learn and understand about each team member. I think the way that they sort of do that, it's a lovely way to provide exposition that I would have loved to have seen maybe fleshed out a little bit more, but I do think that it was still,
it's that sports movie mentality, right?
Right.
That part reminded me of the Adam Sandler football prison movie. Kev, what's the movie called?
Longest Yard.
Yeah.
Beat you to it.
So it definitely gave me those vibes where it's like, all right, who do we have on our team? right? And especially as he starts to see, well, we got some stuff, but we got holes to fill. So he starts looking in the community, and that's where it really gets fun too. And I love that vibe, right? Because I think to the point of what you guys were saying before, this lovingly brings in all of those different sort of sports dramedy stories into this film in ways to almost parody it, while also just using, I think, very easy conventional story elements to help move the pace along, and I think it's done in that manner.
Well, and speaking of the sports action in the movie itself, I thought those scenes were handled really, really well by Taika. It's kind of limited to what he's able to offer just because they're not very good. But even in the moments that they kind of are, I thought it was filmed really well. I almost compare it to another feel-good sports movie that really ties in with culture, which was from Clint Eastwood, Invictus, starring Matt Damon. And I remember coming out of that movie thinking how terrible the scenes involving rugby were and how disappointed I was in that. And here I thought it was handled so much better. There's just enough of it that, you have to keep the heart of the story and what we're really focusing on, but it doesn't take away from the heart and the characters of the story. So he found a really good balance and blend to those football scenes.
I also like how, especially for that second half of that big game, they as opposed to going again that tried and true traditional route, he went Taika with it and had a retelling of the final half, and just the way that brought that again, it was his spin on a this sports comedy movie or whatever, and I just loved it. Again, the way he brought himself into this so cliche thing, I think he did it flawlessly, in my opinion.
I also want to shout out Armani Makaiwa, who plays Armani, who, if I'm remembering correctly, has maybe one line in the movie, but his character is so incredibly charming, and just his willingness to serve just to be part of the team and be part of something larger, I think was really, really lovely. And I think it's such a wonderful sort of culmination and representation of the American Samoan people, just with that one character and just what he does. And he's so quiet, but also so humble and so lovely. And yeah, shout out to Armani. And then I just wanted to touch on Fassbender. Like, of course, yeah, his beard was super fake because they had to do some reshoots for this movie, and you can tell when they're doing the reshoots. And it's weird because, like, at one point there's like a Liam Neeson like callback joke thing, and I was like, I remember seeing him with the fake beard and being like, he really looks like Liam Neeson right now. And then immediately after, he does the Liam Neeson. Anyways, but I think he does a good job with what he was given. I think he's very convincing in all the emotions that he delivers. I think, when he's frustrated, he's very frustrated. I think, we even get to see him show a bit of his comedic side as well, just with him being incapable of saying common phrases like the one I mentioned earlier with chickens coming home to roast. And again, I'll get into what didn't work as far as his development of his character for me, but otherwise he's a great lead here. I don't think I would have had him be. I don't think I would have cast anyone else. I enjoyed him in the movie regardless. His accent was a little all over the place.
That's Michael Fassbender. That's how he talks.
That's just how he talks.
How he talks.
Okay.
Right? There's no accent in there. It's just Michael Fassbender.
That's his accent.
Yeah,
okay.
Exactly.
I think the most fun aspect of Fassbender in this movie is that we're so used to see him playing characters that are just truly, like, they're so capable of whatever it is they're doing. He's often the best at what he does. He's often so successful and skilled, no matter what role he's portraying. And here he's kind of a bumbling mess and can't deliver those rousing pregame speeches. He's getting canned from jobs and not able to connect with people. Like, it's just such an interesting place to see Fassbender, where he's kind of the loser amongst the group, really trying to find how he can succeed in life and move ahead. And so I just thought it was a fun spin on what we're used to seeing him play.
But again, he comes with the weight of an emotionally resonating actor. Like, he just delivers such great performances. So it makes so much sense to, for him to take on a role like this, because there's a confidence that, I can deliver on that performance, but there's also something new here. And it might be that again, as you mentioned, that loser quality to the character that, sort of fake it till you make it, and, let everyone think that you're top shit, but you're ripping off movie speeches as your motivating speeches, which is hilarious. So
Yeah.
yeah.
And then really quickly before we move into maybe what didn't work quite so well, I did want to shout out one more performance, an actress in the movie. You mentioned Taika using old friends and familiar faces from his previous works. And so I wanted to shout out Rachel House, who you would know from Thor Ragnarok, Hunt for the Wilder People. She also makes a small appearance in the second season of Our Flag Means Death. And she is just so great in this. Speaking of crazy tin can ladies, she has a lot of fun with her role here. Kind of the
awesome.
domineering boss of the house who really sets her family in line, but does so with a lot of love and humor. So I thought she did a really great job here.
Absolutely.
But Nate, I know you're chomping at the bit to get into things that didn't quite work for you, so we'll take some time and do that.
Well, it's funny because I think coming out of the movie, I was like, yo, if you find a lot of stuff that didn't work in this movie, maybe you just don't like to feel nice and feel good. But I as I sat with it, and I sat with my thoughts on it, I think there are definitely some aspects to it that didn't quite work for me. And I think the biggest one, and I already mentioned it, was the sort of the pace and the character development of Coach Tongan. I think, to me, there were just moments where he would go from one point to another of not understanding and then understanding the next. And I get it. I get that the whole aspect of well, that's just how it works with these sports movies. It's tried and true for the course. But I think when it comes to someone like Taika, and we talked about ways that he was able to take the format and elevate it and evolve it to be his own and to do different things with it. I think for me, your main character could have been a way to maybe try to do that. I think there was some moments coupled with the ways that Jaya's character was used that expedited some of that development that just came off a bit too quick for me. And I didn't feel the push and pull as much as I would have wanted to, and especially with someone who can do such a phenomenal performance as Fassbender. I don't know. I think the themes and morals that it tackles are really important, and it was nice to see him, sort of get there eventually, especially in how they help sort of tie things in with his past. But I think this is where it goes back to some of those older sports movie cliches that, again, in the 90s, that worked for me when I was younger, and I didn't see them. But now I think it just takes me out just a little bit of what is otherwise a really sort of heartwarming tale, if that makes sense. That's all.
I definitely see where you're coming from.
Did you say Coach Tongan?
Yeah, he said Tongan, right?
He said Tongan.
Yeah,
it's
okay,
Tongan.
Wrongin. Oh, my bad.
Sorry.
My bad.
It was bugging me.
Speaking of things,
I was wrongin again.
There we go.
Yeah.
I definitely see where you're coming from there, but I do think Justin made a really good point earlier about how I think Taika tried to find a balance between pacing the movie and really just sticking to the messaging and not lingering too long on any one thing. But I can see how that might affect a perception of the movie and whether it's truly successful in all of its messaging.
Yeah, I do think pacing is a bit of an issue with this film. It doesn't feel as tight as it could be, and maybe that's just from a video editor's perspective. But I might have moved some moments around in the timeline just to kind of restructure, again, emotional hits and whatnot. But again, that's just me being super nitpicky. But I think again, as you were mentioning, Nate, the sort of stinted character development for Coach Rongan, I think that definitely would come out in a pacing way in terms of how it could have been resolved maybe in how things were positioned through the edit. That could have maybe helped, because I don't know. I think everything's there. It just might have been in the order in which we're experiencing it. So
I mean, to me, the pacing almost makes sense, especially where we leave off with the character. But even more so when you think about the fact that this happens, the span of the movie is over 4 weeks, I think. He was not with the team very long. This was a very brief period in his life, and it wasn't the end goal. By the end of it, he isn't the changed man. He is a changing man, and he is just beginning his journey to find out where he is. So to me, the pacing isn't an issue because this is, again, the fuel to the fire that would be Rongan's change in life. So I wasn't deterred by the cliche pacing and the the typical montage of bonding between coach and player who were first at odds type thing. Like, it makes sense, and I enjoyed it. Again, Taika put his own spin on it that made me enjoy it, as if it wasn't something that had been done 100 times before.
Yeah, I think the only other thing I will say in terms of just like, I don't know, I would have loved to have gotten more of that additional team. Like, maybe it's just me being, I want more, but I think they did an okay job of highlighting some of their strengths and weaknesses. But I felt as though like I love Elizabeth Moss. I love Will Arnett. And I think Will Arnett brought some of the biggest laughs in the movie for the very few moments that we got of Will Arnett. And I thought that Elizabeth Moss, helped with that dramatic side. Absolutely. I just felt as though there were moments where, like, I don't know, like maybe you could have done this without those sequences. Maybe we could have had other characters
we didn't need
to deliver.
Them.
Right.
I don't think we needed them. I think they were very oddly placed.
But that's where you get that pace back, Just. That's where you get that space back to,
I totally agree
either
with you.
give more of the team or more of Jaya's story. And I think that could have really helped.
If you were going to keep anything, it would be their first instance, because you need that first scene with those characters. But I also think those characters were a bit out of place. I thought Will Arnett was a bit out of place.
Yeah.
Don't get me wrong. I have no problem with Elizabeth Moss. I have no problem with her. I think she's a great actress. I don't know if she needed to be there. I would have rathered it just be a board. You know what I mean? And that's all they are. And then after that,
make Rhys Darby the bad guy.
Yeah, exactly.
You know what I mean?
There you go. Like, it could have just been him.
Yeah.
But again, I understand that there's probably a little more weight to having those characters or those actors in this movie. I know there were some reshoots that had to be done to get Will Arnett in there, but that said, I think you didn't need these characters. You didn't need this side of the story as much. You could have gone with the other elements to help have this big emotional reveal that were far more important.
I wanted to, don't get me, I just think that I think it's possible that there was a world where this movie had other characters on the team that I was just as invested in as Jaya. And I think that would have been really cool. Like, I think that could have really worked.
Then I feel like I maybe, but I think the way it worked really is like not to overcomplicate, not to over distract, right? I think our three main characters are Coach Rogan, and Tavita and Jaya, and then everyone else is just adding that flavor and that lifting this movie up in terms of their personalities and the little moments that we get. And I think that they added the right amount of the team in relation to everything else to help tell these stories of these characters. Even the son, I believe, is Daru is his name. He, his story in relation to his culture and his people and his father, I think is touched on in a way that almost parallels or in some ways parallels Jaya's story in some ways. So I think there's a good mix there.
Yeah, I almost think the two North American characters, Elizabeth Moss and Will Arnett, they're meant to represent the past that Coach Rongan can't get over, and they're there. He has to sort of find within himself what's really important and what he needs to be focusing on, be it the past or the future in front of him. And so I do think that they do have a role to play throughout the movie, and because they are so limited, they don't really distract from the main story. If anything, they add just enough for the coach to sort of be focusing on the right things. At least that's how I saw it. So I welcomed them. You need a couple big names to sort of carry the cast as well, right? Like a movie like this, just to get audiences in. And I'm fine with that if it's putting a few extra butts in the seats.
Yeah, the only other thing I will say is I don't like Taika Waititi's teeth in this movie. That's the only other. That's my only other negative. I will say he could have been in it. I would have been fine with him as the narrator.
I think it worked then.
No, he doesn't need those teeth. No way.
No, that's probably that.
If you don't like
bad as the beard. They're as bad as the beard. They just don't fly.
The teeth, the beard, that's the biggest problems with this movie for sure.
All right. Well, the referee is signaling the match is almost over, and we're in injury time. So let's wrap this up. Today we'll be giving our final thoughts and a score out of 5 Karate Kid crane kicks. Darce, why don't you start us off?
Yeah, I'm not going to lie that there wasn't issues with this movie, but I found that those issues were easily overlooked because of how heartwarming and how Taika it was. Again, the way that he put his spin on this, cliche been told 100 times before sports story. It was just so endearing. And I think a lot of that comes down to the fact that the American Samoa culture has such a incredibly family-based way of looking at things, and how that extends to the community and everyone involved, and how that can lead to someone changing the way they look at things is really cool. So I really enjoyed this movie. And again, there were issues, but I think it's enough. You'll be able to enjoy it enough that you'll look past those issues. But I'll be giving this one 4 out of 5 Karate Kid crane kicks. That is a tongue twister.
Yeah, I thought so. Nice. Nate, how about yourself?
Yeah, I think overall, I think this movie, as I said, it's for better or for worse. It's Cool Runnings again. It's the cliche feel good sports movie, but with Taika Waititi humor infused, and that may work for you, and it may not. I was laughing. I definitely, some of the emotional beats definitely really hit for me, especially surrounding Jaya. I just wish that some of the writing and character development was a little more fleshed out for both Coach Rongan and the rest of his team. I think the culture and the beauty of the American Samoan community is on full display, and I think that charm, music, and sense of kindness, along with the laughs, was enough for me to still really enjoy the film as a whole. I do want to revisit this movie with my family when it comes out, just to help fill the Ted Lasso-shaped hole in our lives, and I don't think the movie can fill that hole, but it definitely helps. So go see this movie for the cast. Go see the movie for the culture, the community, for the lessons that it has within it. And it's just a lovely time in the theater. I'm gonna be very much like early of the movie Coach Rongan and stick to my 0.5 scale. As much as I'd love to be like Kevin right now and give this higher than a 3.5 and do like a 3.72 or whatever he does, I'm going to just be stubborn and give this movie a very solid and very heartfelt high 3.5 out of 5 Karate Kid crane kicks.
I would just really quickly like to go on record as saying I have tried to stick more to the solid.
I appreciate it.
4.5. As much as sometimes a movie does deserve that 0.2 extra, it really is the difference and the deal breaker. Anyways, Justin, how about yourself?
Well, I think, again, as Nate and Darcy said, this is. It's a really great film. I think it's a signature. It's the signature style of Taika Waititi, celebrating the underdog in a heartwarming and touching manner. I think the movie, obviously, this movie features a fantastic cast, as we've talked at lengths about. They are definitely the part to celebrate. But what truly sets this movie apart is, in my opinion, its heartfelt, uplifting story. Taika Waititi just has such a knack for infusing his films with a unique blend of humor and pathos. And I think this movie is an excellent example of the body of work that Taika Waititi does best. It's a roller coaster of emotions with moments of laughter and definitely moments of tears, making it, I think, deeply relatable and very much about the human experience. The underdog theme is a thread that Taika has used quite a bit. And it's a testament to his ability to focus on endearing characters who can defy odds. And I think that you can look at the three main cast characters that we've talked about, from Coach Rogan, Tavita, and Jaya, and really see that their story is sort of a thread that runs, parallel to one another through this larger story. And it's the idea of, as you said, Nate, the American Samoan culture is so beautifully put on display here, and it celebrates spirituality, it celebrates community, it celebrates what it means to be a team, not just in sports but in life itself. And I think that's unmatched charm and unmatched sincerity that you can't really get, and that's where it does feel more like a Ted Lasso to me than it does a Cool Runnings. I think Cool Runnings does a lot of cultural appropriation for the humor gags, and definitely American Samoan culture here is on display, and there's some funny moments, but it's mostly at the expense of Michael Fassbender being a white coach, dropped into this culture, and his lack of understanding. And I welcome that. I think that the idea here is that the American Samoan culture is the focus. It is the celebratory part. This movie is great, stellar cast, heartfelt narrative. Just such great dedication to celebrating underdogs. I am going to be giving this a 4 out of 5 Karate Kid crane kicks. Is that right?
You nailed
Did
it.
I flip words around there?
Nailed it.
Okay,
You
cool.
just knocked out Johnny. You got it. This is as safe and crowd pleasing as it gets for a feel good based on true event sports story. Early reviews are rating this at a criminally low level, but I think that has more to do with maybe recent feelings towards Taika. And it being released during festivals where the quality of films are typically far greater than you're going to get from this type of movie. And I just don't think that's a fair evaluation of this movie on its own. While parts of the movie feel rushed, it still delivers on its heartfelt messaging and carries with it plenty of great themes and morals. The characters are wonderful, and you can't help but root for these underdogs because of their heart and their positive attitudes. It might be cliched and unoriginal, but if you want an easy, breezy, feel-good story, you cannot go wrong here. It's everything you should possibly expect from a movie like this, and sometimes that's perfectly okay. And that actually sums up this movie precisely. It is perfectly okay. I had a blast, and I know so many people who will absolutely adore this movie for exactly what it is. And that's why this movie gets the most earnest and affectionate 3.5 out of 5 Karate Kid crane kicks that I could possibly give out. Well, that's it for this review of Next School Wins, which Haka dances into theaters November 17th. Thanks again to our friends at Searchlight Pictures for giving us early access. And thank you for joining us for today's show. We hope you enjoyed. Be sure to subscribe to us wherever you like to listen to podcasts if you haven't already. We can't wait to hear your thoughts on this feel-good true story. As always, you can write into wearegeekcentric@gmail.com. That's wearegeekcentric at gmail.com. Or if that's a bit too much like a can of tuna, and you prefer a nice piece of fish marinated in lemon juice mixed with salt, tomatoes, sliced onions, and delicious coconut cream, you can hit us up on our socials. Justin, where can they do that?
Damn, I want that fish now. They can reach us on Instagram at wearegeekcentric, and they can reach us on the app formerly known as Twitter at GeekcentricYT.
Amazing. As always, we have a ton of great content for you to check out, including our latest reviews and watch clubs, as well as our growing list of incredible interviews with incredible talent from in front of and behind the camera on some of our favorite movies and TV shows. Be sure to check those out wherever you listen to podcasts or on our YouTube channel at youtube.com/geekcentric. And stay tuned for more great content coming your way soon. But until next time, as we say,
Love ya.
Laters.
get home safe, guys.
Peace.